Whenever you get a question on the emerging technology, one brownie point that I always suggest you to add is with respect to the setting the context in the question is very important. And for the same thing, I suggested the flow chart. Wherever there is a scope for the classification, you go with the flow chart. Thing is, or the idea behind it is, when you have two different themes in two parts of the question, what you do when you shift to the second demand, once you give the heading, you provide a small what is the present scenario of IPR with respect to the life materials? Although India is second in the world to file the patents, only few have been commercialized. Explain the reasons behind this less commercialization. So in this question, what will be the introduction? Yes? Definition, it's simple. You simply provide the definition of the IPR. So what is the definition of IPR? First of all, at least give me the source. Who will give the definition of the IPR? Last year you had the question on this. The very same organization, not WTO. World Intellectual Property Rights Organization, WIPO. Okay. So this is also again, last year you had a question on WIPO. In GS2, I think. So again, if you don't know, for example, in the agriculture section, when we talked about the increasing fertilizer prices, we give the data that there is the average increase of around 25% in the fertilizer prices because of this, the Russia-Ukraine war. If you want to mention the source, there also you mention the same source. World Fertilizer Organization, WFO. Okay? So at least WIPO hai to. So according to WIPO, IPR is the creation of mind such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs and symbols used in commerce. Yes, WIPO, very good. So in this, again, we had asked a question on the IPO. So in that also I suggested that after the introduction, you mandatorily give the classification flow chart of the different types of the IPOs. Okay, the trademark, copyright and all. Okay, there is sixfold classification. You had that flow chart. So now you have introduction and flow chart ready. Okay, this is how you bridge the content deficit in the questions that you don't know. Okay, so you had flow chart. Then present world scenario. Okay. So if this kind of question, so when they ask you the present world scenario of anything, okay, the dimensions that you have to cover is the legal scenario first. Okay. Second, the developed versus developing country share. One, legal and institutional. Second, developed and developing countries. And third, you have to follow the sectoral approach. Okay? So sectoral as in, so what they have asked, IPR in life materials. So life materials include the food and medicine. No? Pharmaceuticals, food and medicine. Okay? That in biotech, there will be the biotechnology. So sectors, biotech and the medicine. Okay? Then you make those two as your heading. Pharma or medical. Okay? And the last one is the economic share. Okay? So what is the legal structure for the intellectual property rights? Yes? What norms? Trade related aspect of intellectual property rights, that is the TRIPS agreement of the WTO. Of WTO. What is the developed versus developing countries? Yes.
They used to say about greenwashing of patent. We are adding some little extra hours and they get a green patent.
Okay, what else? So developed versus developing, yes. Yes, WTO trip. Developed countries have more share, that is fine, but the more share is because of the biopiracy. Okay, where they steal the traditional knowledge system. Okay, for example, one of the company had claimed the copyright on the this turmeric. Okay, that's it. So biopiracy. So for here also, yes, haldi. You can give the same example ki as per WIPO, 90% of the traditional knowledge is vulnerable to biopiracy. ठीक है? That. So with respect to biotechnology, so the share of total patent filed in WIPO, 13% of the patent filed are filed with WIPO are related to biotechnology. Okay? Next, with respect to the medical. So with respect to medical, the global scenario is that developing countries majorly use the, yes, what is the provision under the TRIPS agreement that India use? Compulsory licensing. Use of compulsory licensing. What is the example of it? Yes. What is the name of it? Yes. Where did India use the compulsory licensing? What else? Just search it on Google. Yeah. What about the economic share? Yes. What is the economic share? So they have asked you the global scenario. If you don't know, at least you provide the points in comparison between developed and developing countries. So for IPR, what do you need? To file an IPR, what do you need? You need to do some research to file the IPR, na? IPR किस पे file? You file an IPR for the research and innovation that you are doing.
Yes.
What does research and innovation require? Investment. So one of the major issue with respect to developing countries is lack of R&D investment. So while the share of R&D investment in developed countries is around 3%, it is less than 1% in developing countries. That's it. Okay? Yes, R&D. Good. And then you come to the second demand. Although India is second in the world, provide the elaboration. As per Indian Patent Office, with 65,000 patent files, India ranks second. Yet only 5% are commercialized. Because so see, this is also one of the way of giving the heading. Okay, so if you want to address, see, the thing is, or the idea behind it is, when you have two different themes in two parts of the question. Okay, so what you do when you shift to the second demand, okay, once you give the heading, you provide a small paragraph on the elaboration of that concept. Because let's say, for example, the very first question that we wrote, this question, here the first theme was on the trend after 1991 reforms, and the second on inclusive growth. Okay? So after giving this heading, you can give the definition of inclusive growth also. If you refer the meaning of the toppers answers, they have done the same, and in UPSC Mains also I have suggested the same. If the themes are completely different in two parts of the question, you just provide a brief, a very small 2 or 3 lines paragraph. That sets the context to that particular question. Setting the context in the question is very important. And for the same thing, I suggested the flow chart. Wherever there is a scope for the classification, you go with the flow chart. For example, in IPR question itself we did. Similarly, if you get a question on cropping pattern, तो जो मैंने दिखाया था उसमें है. ठीक है. Similarly, on any question on the e-governance, there are 4 types of the e-governance. No, government to government, government to business, business to business, and government to citizen. So uska flow chart for every question on the e-governance we did that. For the any question on the organization, we followed the input output model. We simply used the diagram and highlighted the input output model. For example, self-help group. So self-help group का हमारा simple diagram था. People, they pull the finances and ideas, form SDG. Then SDG pulled finances goes to the bank, and from bank credit comes to the self-help group. Similarly, for the NGO also we had the diagram. Okay. So similarly, this is for the self-help group. Similarly, for NGO also, people, so they have the grievances and demands. They go to the NGO. What do NGO do? They articulate the interest. Okay. This goes as a demand to government, and the result is policy. This is feedback loop. Okay? So this is why we extended our heading a bit and we provided the data in that. Okay? Now the reasons for low commercialization. What can be the reasons? Zero marketing. Okay. What else? Which framework will you follow? This is basically issue part, no? Which framework we follow for issue? Staple. Majority of the questions you follow the staple. So what is the core structural issue? The core structural issue is India is the lack of industry academia linkage. Okay? The first, lack of industry academia linkage. And a simple data for it is less than 10% of CSIR and IIT research result into commercialization. Less than 10% of CSIR, IIT research results into commercialization. Okay? That is the staple. Second is with respect to the, see always, अगर कुछ नहीं आया आपको while writing the issue, focus on 2I, infrastructure institutions. ठीक है? So with respect to the infrastructure, lack of incubation centers. ठीक है? Third, so we talked about the structural issue, technological again won't be there, then administrative issue, that is the regulatory issue. ठीक है? So with respect to regulatory issue, the bureaucratic red tapeism, stringent norms and corruption. ठीक है? What else? Yes, so that will come into the social aspect, the trust aspect. So whenever you are talking about the controversy, you put it into the social trust aspect. What WTO norms? Ulta WTO norms are facilitative. No? WTO norms with respect to IPR are not restrictive. WPO norms with respect to agriculture are restrictive. With respect to IPR, they are not restrictive. Okay? So we have talked about structural. Yes, but that will come into E aspect. So structural covered, technological covered, administrative covered, legal. Yes, what will be the legal aspect? नहीं. Ex GM crops approval like BT brinjal and GM mustard. Yes. Legal aspect. Yes. Yes. So you can talk about disputes over patents and pendency in judiciary. Right? Yes, Pepsi case potato also you can give as an example. Pepsi case over potato. Then after legal, the economic aspect. Lack of funding. ठीक है, जैसे and in startup related questions if you are doing, try to mention the case of the organization either CII or NASSCOM. As per NASSCOM, the majority of biotech companies face issue in fundraising. ठीक है, this. So these are all the issues in with respect to, and then if you want you can bring the social aspect also, public opposition. Okay, in that you can give the example. Yes, clinical trial disputes. Okay, so public opposition. Example you can give BT brinjal and BT mustard. Okay. And whenever you get a question on the emerging technology, one brownie point that I always suggest you to add is with respect to the ethical concerns. Okay, for example, if you have the question on the nanotechnology, the ethical concern is with respect to the human emancipation. With respect to AI, if the question is on AI, again you have the ethical issues, robot replacing man. With respect to biotechnology also, you have the ethical issue of the one, public health, second, against principle of natural selection. Okay, so seventh, ethical issues. Okay, so these are all the issues, and afterwards you simply give the list of the government efforts and then the conclusion for it. Okay, so the government efforts. So see, while applying the 70-30 formula, normally in 70-30 formula we give 70 to the benefits or one thing and 30 to the issues. Okay, but in this case we don't have to have anything to show on the positive side because the demand is issues only. So in that case the 30% goes to the government efforts. Okay, you simply give the heading government efforts and provide 3 to 4 major government efforts. Okay, and in that case you conclude with the way forward. Okay, this, and in this case as it is related to the innovation, thus strengthening the IPR framework. So government steps, I think you know, national IPR policy of 2016. Again, while mentioning the, whenever you are mentioning the government schemes, don't simply mention the schemes, mention the scheme and its objective. Okay, so IPR policy to promote startup ecosystem. Okay, second, patent facilitation centers, government efforts. So this is needed for ease of filing patent. Okay, third, Atal Innovation Mission, strengthening innovation infrastructure. Okay, then protection of traditional knowledge digital library, consolidation of the traditional knowledge. Yes, incubation center in Telangana also, yes. GI tag also, yes, very good. GI tag also you can mention. And then the conclusion. Traditional knowledge depository, traditional knowledge digital library. Okay, and then in conclusion you simply mention strengthening the IPR regime is imperative for, yes, that also you can mention, Viksit Bharat and knowledge economy by 2047. Yes, you can also mention GI. Yes, GI tag also you can mention. So government has brought the act related to it. So you mention the GI Act. ठीक है? So for Viksit Bharat and in conclusion Viksit Bharat and knowledge economy by 2047 or industrial revolution 4.0 also you can mention.